Thanks for tuning in to the Fibrenews podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Ray, and in this episode, I'm joined by Richard Tang from Zen Internet. I think I can confidently give Richard the title of GOAT when it comes to broadband. Zen operate in the consumer space, the B2B space, and also have a wholesale offering. I am very familiar with Zen. Over 14 years ago, when I started in telecoms and broadband, I was provisioning Zen circuits on their portal when I was 18. And throughout my career, when I was a consultant, I would recommend Zen to people that were new to reselling connectivity because of their extra mile approach. It's clear to understand, and you'll hear in this episode, that they've created an extremely unique culture within the broadband space. We get to understand as well that that culture is spread so strong that actually their sales employees don't receive any form of commission or bonus, which is, for me, unheard of within any business, let alone a business within broadband, which has to be aggressive and scalable and growth hungry. Those words didn't make too much sense, but you get what I mean. So for them to be able to create something, for them to be able to create a culture that has took the business over the last 25 years from what it is today, which is a large, £150 million turnover business, by all means is a big thing. And to do that with the culture bedded in is impressive, to say the least. Wherever you listen to this podcast, please do like and subscribe, whether that's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. And from us, we will be releasing more podcasts more frequently. It's been a busy year for us. We only launched in March of this year, so we've had lots of things to accomplish, and the podcast will be a concentration for us in 2025. We've got some big guests to release before the end of the year, and we're going to carry that through in the new year as well. So thank you so much for all the feedback we've had so far, and for everybody tuning into the episodes. Enjoy.
No, I'm very well. Sorry for the delay. I was we're interviewing for a new MD of our business division, and
Okay.
And it was back to back with this. So anyway, he's gone now. Good guy too. He might even.
How long have you been searching for a new MD?
Well, we only started yesterday, because our current MD is retiring at the end of July next year. So a while yet. So 1st of August, we need a new person to take the reins of our £50 million B2B business.
Outrageous. I did see that on LinkedIn, actually. I did
see
that.
Yeah.
He got a lot of traction.
And it did. We've had 111 applicants for the role, which is great.
And then how do you go through filtering those over 100 applicants? Whose duty is that?
Well, that's me and Martin O'Donnell, the current MD. So we're doing first stage interviews, at which we've got 11 of those, and then we'll have second stage, and so normal sort of interview process. And you do your best and hope you get someone who's the right person for the role, just like any other interview.
What sticks out most for you when interviewing someone for such a high role? What's more important? Do you look for more in their personability than their skill set, or is it how that conversation flows will make that decision? Do you have a set amount of questions as well?
It's a combination of the right skills and experience, definitely the right fit with Zen, the right culture, and so it's equal measures of, can they actually do the job? Have they got the skills, the experience? And then if I picture them as part of the team, the Exco team, alongside my other colleagues, can I see them in the team, working well together with everyone, fitting into the culture?
Yeah.
And
culture is going to be a big topic for me in this conversation.
Yeah, good.
I've been familiar with Zen since I started my telecoms career. The first broadband connection I ever provisioned and supported was a Zen Internet wholesale connection through a company called Blizzard when I was an apprentice.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been familiar with Zen ever since. And when I was a consultant, I've always recommended to new resellers, if they needed the higher service and support, that they go through Zen. So I'm actually very, very familiar with your wholesale arm of the business. And coming back to it, the employees that I used to speak to 10 years ago are still within your business today. And that's very, very familiar. Same with the BDM. The BDM that I've known has been there for 20 years. He's been there for 9 years. Sam, your marketing man's been there for 20 years. And that's very similar about the business. So I do want to go into that. Before we jump into the culture side, I think a good place to start is you founding the business, one, why you called it Zen, two, the journey that you went on to create Zen as a fully fledged ISP. Because I think I'm correct in saying you guys are one of the few ISPs that unbundle exchanges on OpenReach. You weren't a layer
Oh, are
two.
we recording now then? Is this?
Yeah, sorry, I always do that. I think it's
Oh,
easier
yeah.
to just flow in
Oh,
naturally
okay.
because it makes it more relaxed.
Yeah,
That's the
sure.
way I do it.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we've built a network to 690 telephone exchanges around the UK. So we've got a national network, and then we've got a core network in London and Manchester, a little bit in Rochdale. So yeah, we've made a huge investment in unbundling exchanges, and it's unusual for, I guess, a business of our size to do that. We were just over the cusp, I think, in terms of size to make that an economically viable proposition. But then, having done that, we can then build on that. But yeah.
So did you start from day dot unbundling exchanges? Did you just unbundle one and just hope you were going to get customers on? How did it all start? Was it?
Yeah,
What was
no.
the process?
So initially, in the early years, so from 1990 for the first 10 years, 1995 to about the mid 2000s, we just used wholesale connectivity, and then mid 2000s we dipped our toe in the water. We unbundled 4 local exchanges here. It was really expensive then, and we were like, okay, we'll just sort of stop at 4. And then it was about 2013, I think, we were like, no, we really want to do this big time. Let's do 200. So then we did 200. We're like, oh yeah, that felt good. Let's do another 200. And then we did another 50, and then we did another, whatever it is, 240 to get it up to 290. So it was a bit of a journey, really.
Yeah. And did you start on the business side then, or was it consumer first?
So the business model for Zen is we build a network that's on net, and then the economics are you want to put as many customers on that network as you can, because the more customers you've got on each exchange, the greater the economies of scale. So, for example,
Correct.
a rack in a BT exchange costs you, like, I don't know, £8,000, let's say, to set up, and then so much a year.
Yeah.
And then whether you've got 100 or 200 customers on, the rack's the same cost. So obviously
Correct.
you can split it over more customers. So our business model is build a network into the exchange and then try and put consumers on, businesses, channel partners, public sector, like as many different sorts of customer as we can possibly find to put onto that network. That's the strategy. So the upside of that is we get the economies of scale more quickly.
Correct.
The downside from a business point of view is we're fighting on multiple fronts. So we're a consumer business, we're going to small businesses, we're going to enterprises, we're going into the channel. So that is more challenging compared to businesses that are just focused, say, on the channel or just on B2B or just on B2C. So pros and cons, really, but that's the business model that we've chosen. And I mean, it's done well for us over the years, definitely.
Oh, I can agree with that. And then inside the business, is it separated out? So you have your consumer division, you have your B2B division, you have your wholesale division. And then if it is separated out, does the same culture flow through those independent areas within the business, or do they have their own micro cultures?
Yeah. So the Zen overall, so we've just had our financial year end, the end of September 2024. Our revenue just over 120 million. So we've grown by 10% from last year. And of that 120 million, about 40% is our direct B2B business. That's the biggest division. 35% is B2C, our consumer division, and 25% is our channel division. Now, in terms of culture, on the whole, yes, we've got such a deeply rooted culture within Zen that is all about people first, environment first, money second, money subservient, really. It's just a fuel that fuels our purpose rather than being a goal in itself. That absolutely runs through the whole organization. But yes, different managers have different styles. So you get little micro cultures emerging depending on the personalities, but within a context where the purpose is really, really strong and clear. So that is
Yeah.
uniform, definitely.
Interesting. And then, so it's very fascinating that you say it's people and environment first and then money second. And that rings true when it comes to all of your business, because you're never the race to the bottom. You're never the most competitive when it comes to price. You've always valued yourself on service. And that's the same for your wholesale, your consumer, and I assume your direct B2B. I don't actually know. But you still managed to win, of course, a lot of business. If we just heard the figures that has that always been the way from day dot? Have you set out that that was going to be the business model, and then the business has magically come? What was the sales strategy? And were you nervous to go out service first? Did you know that you were going to win business based on service? Because an ISP today is launching, if they went to an investor and said, we're going to be people and environment first, we're going to be more expensive than the market, but we're going to try and win all the awards to be the best service, they're going to probably say, get out, bud, because you've got no chance.
They probably would, yeah. No, it wasn't the goal from day one, but it did emerge pretty quickly. So when I set up in 1995, 29 years ago now, the goal was get the business off the ground any way I can. And so for the first few years, I mean, it took us 4 years to make our first profit. And it was just about, getting the business off the ground. And back then it was consumers, right? In the early days, it was techies using dial-up internet access to the internet. And what happened in 1998 is that what we'd been selling for £10 a month, all of a sudden was free, because FreeServe back then launched a free service, and we're like, oh my goodness, is this the end of Zen? What we've been selling is now free.
Yeah.
But actually, that was a huge blessing in disguise. It was a huge opportunity, because it made us focus on the B2B space, because FreeServe were offering B2C services for free, not B2B services back then. So it forced us really to focus on B2B. Now, the B2B business was more profitable, and the B2C business was actually more work for a lot less profit. So inadvertently, two things happened. First of all, we focused on the part of the business which was more profitable. And secondly, the launch of FreeServe just massively boosted the use of the internet in the UK. So with so many more consumers using the internet, more businesses saw it as a serious thing they needed to get into, and that drove demand for our services. So those two things together meant that in 1999, we more than doubled our turnover and made our first ever profit. So really blessing in disguise. And then it was in 2001, I think, or 2000, I came up with this mission for Zen to provide the best service in the UK. So I said, our mission is to provide the best ISP service in the UK. And that really, I think, was the start of this focus on quality. Because the next question is, well, how do you provide the best service? Easy to say, but how do you do it? And you do it by continual improvement. Thousands and thousands of the smallest little tweaks, those marginal gains of every part of the service. And that's what we've been doing now for like 25 years. And that sort of built this best service differentiator that has allowed us to prosper in a market where the bigger players, it's much more about selling a commodity for a price. And I guess in any market, whether it's cars, whether it's clothes, whether it's food, you go to a supermarket, then you've got your value brands, you've got your normal brand, and then in the case of Tesco Finest. And I used to say, we are Tesco Finest, and that is our market niche. And whether you're buying cheese or whether you're buying the internet, there's a market for customers who want the best and don't mind paying a little bit more for it, because what they're getting is value for money. That's what they want.
Correct.
They don't want Tesco value. They want Tesco Finest. So we are the Tesco Finest. And that was us through the 2000s, the 2010 decade. We just continue to build on that differentiator. And the culture, the people and environment first culture, I suppose partly came out of that, and then partly just came out of my own observation of the world, seeing that a lot of the way that businesses operate was not sustainable, And I thought, here's my opportunity to do something that's from my heart, that is setting a great example for how a business could operate in a version of capitalism that's evolved, that is sustainable for society as a whole, and it's sustainable for the environment. So that's very much what we're about. We've been about for a long time, and about today.
And it clearly works, right? So there's two questions, just because I'm used to sort of remembering one question after the other and I never write anything down. So the first question is, how do you, so that top tier service culture needs to be embedded from the ground up, right? Because it's your support guys that the consumer or the reseller is on the phone to, and they're the ones who put that extra effort in, which that's what sat with me for all the years. It was speaking to those customer support staff that would be like, well, we shouldn't really support you on that, but I'll spend an hour on the phone with you anyway to help you configure the router, even though you should 100% know that because you're a reseller. I've been there many times. How do you embed that culture from the ground up? Is it reliant on the managers to be constantly checking like this? Like, does that make sense?
Yes, embedding the culture, constantly reinforcing what Zen is about. So reinforcing our three most fundamental long-term objectives in priority order: happy staff, happy customers, happy suppliers. We talk about that. We've talked about it for years and years and years. So that's the first thing, being very clear about what Zen's purpose is. So Zen's purpose is people first, environment first, money is subservient to the purpose. So let's from the moment someone joins all the way through their career journey at Zen, keep reinforcing that is the purpose here. And then given that purpose, we've then got to focus that down to specific things that we do, decisions that we make, the way we treat our people, the way we treat our customers, decisions we make on pricing are all grounded in this fundamental purpose. So, I mean, it's really important that once you've defined the purpose, you've got to then make sure that your actions reflect and reinforce that purpose. So when you get to that specific tech support call and you as a channel partner ring in and you're like, my router's not working, the person answering the call are like, I know what we're about here. Here's a customer. I want to help them out. I've been encouraged to help them out. Right. This is not the Zen service at fault, but you know what? I'm going to spend a bit more time on the phone anyway, helping them out. And then you've got a specific example of a daily action that is rooted in our culture. And that's the daily actions. And then also in terms of setting our strategy as a business, also rooted in our culture. So first of all, we haven't got pressure from external investors saying you need to hit this target or you need to hit that target, or, we want to maximize the value in a year's time so we can all exit and be rich. So, so we can make the right decisions for the business for the long term. We can invest in the network, we can invest in our people, and we can make decisions like, for example, the whole mid-contract price hike thing. So we're in a situation in the consumer broadband space where most of the major competitors are winning customers based on a price that's in a big bold letters, a headline, £25 a month or whatever. Right. And in the small print, they're like, £25 a month, but every April it's going to be hiked by CPI plus 3.9%. Actually, that'll be compounded over 2 years because it's a 24-month contract. Yeah. And you end up, with customers signing up for something, but they're being tricked by those players to pay, according to consumer organisation, which about £150 more than they expect. And then you look at that, and we look at that as a company, and we ask, well, we're losing customers to these big players that are tricking consumers. What should we do? Should we trick them as well so that we can play the same game? Or should we do what we know is morally the right thing, which is when you sign up a customer on a contract, you start on one price, and when the end of the contract, their price is the same. So it's really clear. And obviously we take the second path, which does lose us business, But in the long term, we've grown every year for 29 years because customers value the fact that we're making the right decisions for them. Get to the end of the contract. I mean, this is another thing with contracts. Like, obviously, everyone's got busy lives. You get to the end of the contract, and big broadband suppliers know that at the end of the contract, there's a proportion that are just too busy to renew their contract.
Yeah, a
So,
large portion.
you know, and I mean, who wants, who wants to be having to think, oh, I really got to renew my contract, otherwise I'm going to get totally fleeced. And no one wants to do that. So at Zen, we were like, you know what? Someone goes out of contract. If we've not put up the price that we're advertising for new customers, just don't do anything. Leave them to run on month to month, but keep them on the same price. That's what we're offering to new customers. That's really unusual in the industry. What usually happens for those people that run out of contract, they get this big price hike. And in some cases, I mean, I won't name names, but some packages from some of the best known names in the industry, the price can go up as much as double. So can you believe?
Oh yeah.
You're paying like £30 a month for your broadband. All of a sudden, you get a bill for like 60 quid, and you're like, where's that come from? And it's all, it's all in the terms and conditions. If you don't pay, they're going to, they'll go and sort of take you to court and whatever. So so unethical practices, short term, to hack customers off. And I guess, we've taken that road of, no, we're not going to do all that stuff. And then in the long term, it really pays off.
So I've got two questions there again. So, so based on providing that top tier service, we were just speaking about them, some of the larger providers. So they will win business by going onto comparison sites, and they'll have field sales and everything else, and they'll spend money to acquire that customer. You've gone on the service route. So are your sales methods the same as some of the other big three? But you have more margin in the deal because you provide that better service, or are you relying on lots of organic traffic coming because of loyalty from customers saying Zen was really good to me, you should go and look at them?
So what's different is the organic growth. So I would say over the 29 years of Zen, most of our growth has come from organic growth. However, we do adopt the same, we have got sales teams. We do go on price comparison websites. We do all sorts of great marketing. Obviously, our marketing is a fraction of the size compared to the big guys, but it still works. It's still effective. So we do a lot of the same things. And then I guess the things that we don't do are those more aggressive sales tactics. And we've had 2 or 3 examples quite recently where sales people from our competitors have just outright lied to the customer to win the deal. I mean, there was one that we became aware of, was one of the salespeople from, again, a very well-known name that I won't name and shame here, was talking to one of our customers who wanted to move from them to Zen. And they were trying to retain the customer. And they said, there's no point moving to Zen because we've acquired Zen. They're now part of us. Complete fabrication. And obviously we became aware of that. And, there's one or two like that where you're like, why, how could you end up with a situation where a well-known national name is outright lying to customers to try and retain their business? Something culturally has gone wrong there. And look, I don't blame the individual for doing that. Maybe I do a little bit, but mostly I blame the culture that person has been put in. So, for example, and I'm just imagining a culture where it's like, hit your retention target, otherwise you're out.
Yeah.
And like you put someone in a
100%.
position where, well, I need to live, I need to pay my bills. I'm being incentivized to do what I probably know is not right, but I got families to feed or whatever.
Hi, just a quick one from me. I just want to talk about this episode's sponsors, and the first sponsor is VoiceFlex. That's a brand that many within the channel will be extremely familiar with. They've been around for many, many moons, and they've been providing SIP services, voice services with their cloud-based PBX. They've been providing connectivity. They've been doing everything you would expect from a wholesaler. But the product I want to talk about is My IP Voice. It's a landline replacement product that's been helping ISPs and B2B resellers who concentrate on the SOHO space really find a scalable API-led product that can consume orders via API. Their porting team have been in the business for a very long time, and they understand how to get your volume of orders through quickly and efficiently. And the second episode sponsor is Get Crisp, a marketing agency that I've used for many, many years. They're based out in Lewes near Brighton. They're all ex-telco and broadband guys and gals, so they understand our industry better than anyone. They do everything from videography, software development, web development, design, copywriting, absolutely everything. Fibrenews was built by them and many other of our projects. These guys are incredibly good when it comes to understanding what we need and what we want to portray within our industry. These are the guys that I use when it comes to doing my video content at events. So if you have a look at our Connected Britain video, you'll see the high level of content that these guys produce. For both sponsors, the details will be in the body of this episode. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. And that's very typical throughout all of sales within broadband, especially consumer, right? Whether it's internal or external. And I assume you have a different culture to that then, judging by what you just said, when it comes to your sales staff. Do you think your salespeople perform higher within the Zen culture than they would with a competitor because they get a more of a relaxed atmosphere? And I'm guessing that's what the atmosphere is just by what you're saying. And have you ever monitored that? Like, so you've taken someone from one of the big competitors and like, this has been a fresh whatever you call it. This is a much better sales environment for me, and I actually found myself performing better. It'd be nice to see if that worked, because we tend to be quite grey-bearded when it comes to the telecoms and broadband sector, and we know what we know. And when it comes to distance sales, we can be quite ruthless, and it's because it's what we know. And people will very quickly burn out and very quickly tire and very quickly become miserable within their role. What's the sales side like at Zen?
Yes. So the short answer is, I think, yes, our sales teams perform better than the sales teams of our competitors. And this is a real irony, I guess, that by focusing on people in the environment, it is a recipe for fantastic financial success. And that is a bit counterintuitive. But if you look at our history, we were a startup business in 1995. We're now a £120 million business. We employ 580 people. We built a national network. We're profitable and we have no debt. So we've achieved a great deal of financial success by not focusing on money, by focusing on people in the environment.
Yeah, it's nuts.
But one thing that we do within Zen, which is very, very unusual from a sales point of view, is we don't pay any sales bonuses, and we don't pay any sales commission. And yet we end up with sales teams that are not only loyal, but perform fantastically well. And again, you're like, how can that possibly be? That is totally counterintuitive. And this is something that I've spent probably the last 15 years thinking about and getting to the point now. Actually, we've been doing this for years now. So a bit of history. So in the 2000s decade, we had a sales team and they earned sales commission. And there was something that always grated with me a little bit about the sales commission part of it. And because I thought, on the one hand, we're sort of saying, this is our culture. We want you to do the very best for our customers, build long-term relationships with them. On the other hand, we have this sales incentive scheme that says, in many cases, for example, let's say the customer wants the best solution for this customer, this little business, is a broadband line, business broadband line. However, our sales commission scheme says if you missell them a leased line, they don't need a leased line, but if you sell them one, you're going to earn more money. So on the one hand, that's one of so many examples where what we want the sales people to do versus what we're incentivizing them to do are two different things. And of course, the natural way to go from there is to start building. Well, yeah, okay. So what we'll do is we'll have a proportion of the scheme that is just about sales revenue or sales margin, but then we're going to have this sort of gate which is NPS, customer NPS, or customer satisfaction. So if the customer's not satisfied, then that's going to scale down your bonus. And by the time you've taken 1 or 2 steps down that road, the scheme's so flipping complicated, nobody understands it, and the people that do understand it can still game it anyway. And in the end, I remember thinking, this does great with me, but that's the world, right? If you've got a sales team, you've got to pay them commission or a bonus, and if you don't, they're going to be super lazy. They'll lounge about. They're like, well, I'm going to get paid whether I do this job or not. And the whole business will fall because you just won't sell anything. And that was conventional thinking. And I thought, look, this is just me. I've got an odd view of the world. I need to get over myself, pay the commission, just get, direct my mind to other things. And then I read and watched some videos from Dan Pink, who has written a book back then. He called it Drive. It was all about what motivates people.
Yeah.
And he made the case that, look, salespeople did not branch off from a different stage of evolution, years and years ago and become motivated in different ways. Salespeople are just people, just like our customer service people, like our software developers, like everyone else. And they're motivated by the same things as everyone else. They want to do a good job. They want to be in a team that they enjoy working with. They want a manager that respects them and then helps them develop. Or they want recognition when they do a good job. And what Dan Pink said was, actually, there are examples where the money reduces performance rather than increases it. And he gave some examples. That really got me going, because then I started searching for businesses that had done this. And they were, I found one. I think there was a couple in the US.
Yeah.
But that was enough for me to I really believe in that. This is right for Zen. And we actually changed it back in 2012, and we refined it over the coming year, over the following years. And we're in a situation now where we've got brilliant sales performance. We've got very loyal salespeople who stay with Zen for 10, 15, 20 years.
Correct.
We're growing at double digits. We're selling loads of stuff. And it's it's quite a selling point when one of our, let's say, business development managers goes into a new enterprise customer and says, you know what, I want to recommend the best solution for you. And I'm not going to get a bonus or commission on the back of this.
Correct.
I've got this single-minded thing, and it works really well. So really bucks the trend, counterintuitive. But my argument is, you put these commission and bonus schemes in, you actually get poorer performance from your sales team rather than better. And look, and they're not lazy. They're still just as driven. They're the same people. They're just as driven as the people before.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Have you ever been vocal about this before?
No, first time on this podcast. This is a first time.
Happy days. Environment side for you is obviously incredibly important.
Yeah.
So you've said it multiple times now. It's people and environment. The first question is, where does the passion come from the environment side? Was this always the focus from day dot, or did you start thinking more about the environment in recent years? And what are you doing to support your views?
Yeah. So the environment stuff came later. So it was more about the people first. And I think as the challenges that we face as a world became more apparent, climate change, loss of biodiversity, that's when the environmental priority became part of our purpose as well. We joined the B Corp movement. That was back in about 5 years ago-ish, something like that. And again, the B Corp movement very aligned to what Zen is about, in terms of recognizing that the current structure of capitalism is it's doing two things. First of all, it's driving massive inequality in terms of wealth. And secondly, it's driving consumption out of the Earth's resources at a rate that the Earth cannot keep up with. So let's try and come up with a scheme where businesses have a different set of priorities. So that's what B Corp's all about. And one of the key ways they achieve that is they require B Corps to amend their articles of association so that the directors of the business have a equal responsibility to people and planet as they do to making financial return to the business. So that's written into the articles that you've got to look after your customers. You've got to consider they're all stakeholders. So your customers, your employees, your suppliers, the local community and the environment, they're all equal stakeholders alongside profit. That's the way that B Corp sets it out. At Zen, I would argue we've gone a step further than B Corp because we're actually saying, no, people and the environment are the purpose. Actually, the profit is not equal. The profit is secondary to the people and the environment. So B Corp is one thing we do. And then we've got an environmental steering group here. And we look at, well, what can we do practically to have a positive effect on the environment?
Yeah.
And there's a whole raft of things to do. And a lot of practical things like, well, let's put more efficient stuff in our building. And look, lots of companies do this. Let's use LED lighting. Let's put a solar farm on the roof. We've done that. Let's go over to the East Coast and plant like 2,700 trees. So we did that early this year.
Physically done it as a group?
Yeah. So there was about 15 of us went over for the day. And we had to plan, I think that the quota was something like 150 trees each. So we were all,
so that's hardcore.
Yeah. So we were there in February this year, planting trees, over near the East Coast, for a day. So that was good, and also we have also done some marketing campaigns where the offer to the customer is, if you sign up with Zen, we're going to plant 10 trees, or we're going to plant, in some cases, we're going to plant 100 trees. And so we've actually planted over 10,000 trees now, not in the UK, but over in, I think it's in Kenya, as a result of these incentives for customers. The other thing, the other big focus, of course, is net zero. So we've got a big focus on.
That was going to be my question. But is that possible for an ISP of your size?
Well, I think the question has to be, how do we do it? It's really difficult. And if you look at Zen's emissions in terms of our journey to net zero, over 90%, about 95% of our emissions are in our supply chain. So they're with, a big chunk are with OpenReach, for example.
Course,
So what we can do there is work very closely with OpenReach, which we do, to jointly try and get to the net zero target. Alongside that, we can look at other things that we can do, like, for example, making sure our electricity is 100% renewable. So that's been the case for many years. Looking at gas, what can we do about gas in our building? Again, it's a small part of the overall, but that, we need to do something about that. The whole net zero thing, I find, is a bit of a minefield, because it's far from clear. A company like Zen, so we want to get to net zero as quickly as we possibly can. How do we do it? And the answer is really complicated. It's not,
because that original data set to measure your emissions is it's incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive to try and calculate that.
It is. And even when you've calculated it, you end up with these dilemmas. Of course, the scientists that put together, the SBTI, the science framework that you sign up to be part of the net zero journey, they've got to come up with a rule that is globally applicable to all businesses. And it's simple. Well, the idea is simple. It's not simple at all, actually. But then you end up with these dilemmas Like, okay, so if I went outside and planted a tree in the I don't know, at the front of the building or something like that, or if we bought a little plot of land and put a tree on it, that would contribute to our net zero target, because it's removing, when it grew, it would remove a certain amount of CO2 from the atmosphere. And you know, let's say it costs, I don't know, £5 to plant that tree, but for 50p you can plant a tree in Kenya.
Yeah.
So actually, for that £5, I could plant 10 trees in Kenya.
10 trees. That's it.
Now, the world's the world, so actually, just everything else being equal, 10 trees will absorb 10 times the amount of CO2 as one tree. But those 10 trees in Kenya, because they're not on Zen's land, although they make an environmental benefit, they don't contribute to our net zero at all. So net zero is actually telling us to do, is incentivizing us to do something that is less beneficial to the environment than something that we could do. So you end up, and that's one example of a number of dilemmas where you're like, well, what do you do in that situation? Do you go down the net zero route and have less benefit to the environment? Or do you actually do what you think maximizes environmental benefit, but then you're not on the net zero path? I mean, the ideal is to do both, but we've got these dilemmas. And for me personally, I want, we're in a climate crisis. We've got a biodiversity crisis. We're in the midst of the 6th mass extinction in the world's history. I want to have the maximum benefit. And I'm much less interested in ticking one box or another box, So in that example, all of the things being equal, I'd plant the 10 trees in Kenya, because that's 10 times the CO2. Now, I mean, that example, there are all sorts of other questions and complications, like, well, will those 10 trees even be allowed to grow? Will they be overbuilt or something like that? Will they be pulled up in 2 years' time? Will the people that plant the trees actually really plant them? So look, there's all sorts of complications in there, but all things being equal, there are things that you could do that have a greater benefit on the environment, but don't advance your net zero journey. And I guess that the final thing I'll say about net zero, because we're involved a lot with net zero, both within Zen and within the industry, is I can't help thinking that there's an awful lot of meetings, measuring, reports. There's a lot of time spent generating paperwork that is not helping the environment. Now we do need to measure, and I accept that. And if we're going to hit a target, we need to measure. But there's a lot of energy spent on margins, measuring and signing up to targets, rather than actually doing things that reduce global warming.
Agreed. That was a good section. That was a good answer as well. Thanks very much. So the full fibre element, we're going to have to get into the full fibre side. So first of all, do you want to talk about the OpenReach rollout of full fibre? And you guys were obviously early adapters because you're sat on the OpenReach network. Did you find any hiccups when it came to rolling out full fibre, especially around educating the customer that their voice services may not be carried over? And did you have a voice service from day dot? Has that been a pain point for you? I know lots of other ISPs struggle with it. So
So the rollout itself, technically, the rollout's gone really well. And I mean, OpenReach, I take my hat off to OpenReach. I mean, they're building 1 million premises every quarter at the moment, which is absolutely mind-boggling in terms of the amount of build. And one of the challenges that we've had in terms of customers is this thing that Ofcom, the regulator, has highlighted, that some customers actually don't know what they've got. So particularly because fibre to the cabinet is called fibre or up until very recently is being called fibre. A lot of customers are like, have I got fibre? Have I not got fibre? I don't know. Is it full fibre? Is it partial fibre? But it's so a little bit of a challenge there. But actually, a lot of our customers are more informed, and actually they do know the difference between full fibre and FTTC, and when when it comes from Openreach, they're like, yeah, I'll have full fiber. Great. On the question about voice services, yes, we've had a digital voice service for many years. So we are able to offer customers the opportunity to move to full fiber, keep your phone number that you've had for decades. Actually, if you've got a decked handset that you particularly like and it's around your house, you can plug that into the router instead of plugging it into the phone socket, and that works just the same as it did before. Or you can.
Was that a messy process in the early stages of getting from a digital sales journey? So when customers signing up online, not knowing if they did have a landline, wanted to keep a landline, and then you got the whole mess of trying to port the number across and everything like that. A lot of ISPs struggle with that.
Yeah. So the sales process wasn't problematic. That was quite easy. We ask in the order journey, do you want to keep your phone? Do you want to keep your phone line? Do you want to keep the same phone number that you've had? Or actually, are you not bothered to keep the phone? So it was a simple choice in the order journey, and customers understood that. Number porting was problematic in the early days. It really was problematic. The processes were pretty manual on our supplier side. So it was a manual process. It was a bit clunky, and obviously this is people's phone numbers that they've relied on for decades. So they want it to be right. But on the consumer side, yes, apart from the number porting issues, the transition to digital voice has gone okay. What I will say is we still have got tens of thousands of customers on the old PSTN network, and with the date of the switch off looming, we've got a big project to continue to move people across, whilst taking note of Minister Chris Bryant's crusade to look after vulnerable customers, which is absolutely right. So we need to make sure that if people do have panic alarms linked into the PSTN, then those stay up, and then we're very careful with those. So that's fine. On the business side, we have had a lot of it has gone as smoothly as with consumers, but businesses have tended to use more of the features on a PSTN line, and so when they switch over to digital voice, then sometimes not all the features are there in terms of redirecting the number and their voice.
It's not what they used to with the star 471.
Yes,
even though you're probably able to give them a lot more features because it's now based in the cloud, and those features are a click of a button. It's educating that customer that you don't press star 47 anymore, but
Well, exactly, yeah. So the features, most of the features are there. You've got to use them a different way. Some of the features are not there, or they don't quite work the same. And then, of course, for businesses that have been used to using that, it's like a new problem that they really don't want. So we've had some challenges from business, not massive, but for some of them, it's been problematic. On a journey there.
All good. Altnet side.
Altnet.
So you've interviewed lots of CEOs and founders and C-level players within the altnet arena, and you've got your wacky racers talk that you do that I see at Connected Britain and everything else. So you're very focused within this space. So the first question to me is, when you had Whale, you released that yesterday, and we promoted it yesterday for you from Fiverr Cafe. One of the questions you asked him was about the consolidation piece. Do you think there's going to be only 4 networks remaining? Is that your same conception? Do you have that same opinion as well? And you currently, if I'm correct, have City Fibre, and you have Truly, which you recently announced. Truly, no one saw coming, because I don't think no one knew there were going to be a wholesaler in the market. So maybe it's worth talking about that partnership first before I dive into the other question. How did the Truly side come about?
So the Truly deal, absolutely fantastic, brilliant team at Truly, and we've interconnected with them. We're well on. We've got some live customers already, live trial customers. We're on with integrating with their API. We're going to migrate some of our existing fiber to the cabinet services that we have with Openreach onto full fiber, onto the Truly footprint, as and when we'll probably do that in January. We'll offer the opportunity to those customers to move to full fiber on the Truly network. But the altnet, I mean, it's such an interesting time in the development of the industry. And
we're never going to have it again either, not within our lifetime, because fiber's there now for decades and decades to come. Really, the technology at where the fiber terminates is what's stopping us get to insane speeds at the moment. The cable itself is going to last us forever.
Oh, absolutely. And we can go from where we are today, which is, I suppose most people have got up to a gigabit. Some people have got now 1.8 gigabits, 2.5. There's a few who've got a little bit faster than that. But the fiber itself can go up to 10 gigs, 100 gigs, 400 gigs, 1 terabit, whatever's the next technology. That piece of hair thin glass will carry on unlimited bandwidth. And of course the race, and this is where I came up with this term wacky races, because it does feel like there's a bunch of altnets, and as we said earlier, about 100 altnets who all saw this big opportunity. They're like, wow, this is a once in a generation opportunity. Let's build fiber network. And of course the investors were like, yeah, come on, let's plow the money and build as fast as you can. And it was like wacky races. Who's going to win? And now it is the pressure has really ramped up, because you've got all these altnets. They've typically got business models that are not yet viable. They've got these big piles of debt. They've got investors thinking, are we ever going to even get our money back here? Never mind make a return. And there's the consolidation, which some of the CEOs have described like a chess game, and who's going to merge with who, and how's it all going to come together, and where's it going to end up. Now the consensus across, for myself and all the CEOs that I've spoken to, is that we will end up with a consolidated market, a bit like the cable TV consolidation that we had back in the 90s. And you'll end up with a very small number of big national players, and you might end up with a handful of the likes of Barn, the rural players, who have got these brilliant business models that can persist longer term. And how, in terms of where do I think things will end up in 2030, I think we'll have probably 4 or 5 networks by then. So OpenReach for sure are going to be there, VMO2 and Next Fiber, and they'll probably make some more acquisitions. There'll be a big national network for full fiber, and they're building currently. And then we've got probably, I think, 2 or 3 big national networks by 2030. I think into the 2030s, we'll probably end up with, if we end up with 2 or 3, they'll consolidate down to a single entity at some point later on in the 2030s decade. But how's that going to be? City Fibre are the biggest today. Is it going to be City Fibre? And what they've said, I think what Dan Ramsey, the CMO, told me, is they see themselves very much as the acquirer rather than the ones that are getting acquired. But then you've got Netomnia and Brisk, who are building actually much faster than City Fibre are currently, and they're racing ahead.
And don't struggle to connect. I've got to say that. With their Anchor ISP brand, they're circa, I think they put something out about 120,000 customers. It's rapid. They know how to bring customers on. They really do. Yeah. And that for investors, they're great at building the network rapidly, but equally you're great at penetrating the network to investors. Then if you're going to be the acquirer, they're going to be happy with you. So I think that could be a strong.
So they're up there, and then you've got you've got the London players, you've got Community Fibre, you've got G Network, and then there's Hyperoptic, of course, who've done a really brilliant job of the MDUs. Seem to have a really good take up, but not without their financial challenges, as have been in the news lately. Correct. So even, I don't know. I mean, what I do know is that, and I've not had a detailed look at their accounts, but my understanding is that they've got this huge debt repayment obligation. And when you look at the debt repayment compared with their revenue, you're like, oh, my goodness, like, the majority of their revenue is just paying off the debts. How's that ever going to work? And this is, this is one of the most successful altnets in terms of customer penetration. So a lot of challenges. And then you've got this group of smaller altnets, but still, more than 100,000 premises passed and ready for service. So Truly is an example of those. And I think for those altnets and for the bigger ones, there's a great fit with Zen in terms of doing deals that are mutually beneficial. And so that's what we did with Truly when we signed a couple of months ago now. And we're talking to a number of the other altnets with a view to doing similar deals. I'm sure we will do more deals throughout the course of this our financial year, which is up to end of September 2025. For Zen, we've got this great opportunity to be a altnet aggregator. And that's something that we're taking really seriously now. And if we do that, then it would put us in quite a unique situation in the UK market, because particularly in the channel partner world, it means that our channel partners can interconnect with Zen once.
Correct.
Through our API, and they can get access to all these different altnet networks, full fiber networks, and they don't have the overhead of dealing with each specific network. For them, it's just a service fronted by Zen. So if we were to do that, it would be quite unique in the market. So we see a big opportunity with that. And then on the consumer and B2B side, it just means our footprint's bigger.
Yeah.
Now over time, of course, OpenReach are going to overbuild.
And it's going to be more competitive as well, right? So you get access to those new full fiber customers, but they're also 9 times out of 10 with an altnet more competitive compared to a national player. And the service 9 times out of 10 tends to be better as well, because they're a smaller outfit, right? They might have their own in-house engineers. Installation's going to be quicker. Sometimes they can knock them out within 2 days to your customer. That's amazing. There's huge benefits. And I think on the wholesale side, it's very interesting because lots of people, a handful of brands are singing the tune to say they want to be this aggregator, but no one has seemed to really crack the code yet. What do you think the delay is? And obviously you guys are going to be doing the same. Do you think it's the technology from the altnet side, which is lacking, or is it having to build something internal to be able to, bring all of those networks into one place and everything else? What's the delay? Because you'd think a wholesaler would be rushing to get everyone on and have that USP like yesterday. And there's enough networks out there now that are wholesaling. I think some of them have more to learn. They want to be a wholesaler and suddenly realize, actually, there's a lot of tech that I need before I can do that. Partners require a portal, and things like that. So what do you think the delay is?
I think there's multiple factors in terms of why this big consolidation isn't going quicker than you might expect. So let's touch on a few. First of all, the difficulty of consolidating. So you can say the big consolidation in 2 seconds, but what that means is getting 2 businesses. Let's take Netomnia and Brisk. So they have merged. But they've got a big challenge now, because they need to merge 2 networks into one, and it's not just the networks, but the systems need to merge. You've got people and teams in different parts of the country doing different jobs, so you're restructuring businesses. We want one technology department, we want one marketing department. These are all big, complicated things that take a lot of time, and that's typically 6 to 12 months of effort to integrate two companies together. In some cases, it might be even longer than that. It could be even 12 to 18 months. And so even if there were no other barriers, the idea of merging together 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses into one, that's like probably 2-3 years worth of work just to do that. The next issue, I suppose, is the availability of funds and the investors. So you've got these big infrastructure funds. They're, I think, feeling the heat a little bit, particularly with the unexpected hike in interest rates, which means the debt is so much more expensive. And the realization that it's not just about like the Wild West and you just got to build as quickly as possible, which was the view, say, 3-4 years ago. Now, the investors are thinking we need to end up with businesses that are viable, that actually end up making a profit. oh, how are we going to do that? There's a long journey to get to that. So I think the investors are much, much more considered and measured about what they're going to fund. If it's going to be an acquisition, if it's going to be a share swap, so a merger and share swap, then one thing actually that Jeremy Shalot highlighted is the cost of build between different altnets varies quite considerably. So he's proud that Netomnia has a much lower than average build cost.
Yeah.
So when he's looking which altnets make sense to merge with Netomnia, then if you've got an altnet where their build cost is double or triple Netomnia's build cost, then does that really fit? Does the business model fit? Maybe it doesn't. And then you've got the whole big chicken and egg question about, are we a wholesale network builder or retail network builder? And the majority that I've spoken to, their aspiration from them and from their investors is the asset they want is the network. They want to be a wholesale network.
Yeah.
And actually the retail ISP was a means to an end just to get the network up and running.
Yeah.
But long term, we're not sure whether we want to be in the retail ISP business, because for a lot of these altnets, they've got these retail ISPs. They're a lot of work, don't make any money.
Yeah.
And they're not actually the core business. Now, City Fibre have been clear on that from day one. They're like, this isn't our core business, and they've reached the scale to attract the big players. So TalkTalk, Vodafone, and then very recently Sky have signed up. Zen signed up, and they've got lots of partners signed up to their service. So they're, I guess, quite happy from a point of view of having those ISP customers to their wholesale business. But some of the smaller ones, that they aspire to be like City Fibre, to have those scale players, but it's still chicken and egg for them. So I mean, let's take Truly. We've done this to deal with Truly. Truly's got a footprint of about roughly 300,000 RFS premises, around about, and they're too small to be of interest directly to TalkTalk, Vodafone, Sky, but they are of interest to Zen. So there's a good deal to fit together. And then they're like, well, at some point we're going to fit into this big consolidation, and then we will be big enough because we'll be part of this bigger entity.
Yeah.
And then, the funds themselves have got different, I guess, timescales in terms of when they want to invest, when they exit. So that is a factor as well. There's the question of viability of the business. So, just a couple of days ago, Spring Fibre announced that it's an intention to go into administration. So that is a worry for both the altnets and the investors. Most of the business models, as I said earlier, are not viable today in terms of being self-sustaining. They're still investing a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing as well. Is are we going to merge with a business that actually you've got that asset that is of value? And of course, again, as we said earlier, Openreach are building 1 million premises every quarter. What's that doing to the altnets? It is diluting the value of the altnets network, because if you've got an altnet that today is 30% overbuilt by Openreach, and then in 6 months' time, it's going to be 50% overbuilt by Openreach, the value of that network asset is less, because you've gone from a situation of 70% of your network, you're the only full fibre game in town, and now it's only 50% since you're the only full fibre game in town. The other 50%, you're up against the rest of the market who are connected with Openreach. You're up against BT Retail and Sky, TalkTalk, Vodafone, all the others connected to the Openreach network, including Zen, of course. So then, I mean, you've still got a business model, because typically the altnets are saying, we'll have a better, a more attractive commercial offer than Openreach is going to give you. So even when we're overbuilt, we're still going to be more attractive. But then you've not got the customer base. BT Retail are never going to sign up to you because they're tied to Openreach.
Absolutely.
Which on another issue, that's an interesting dynamic because BT Retail, massive player, but one restriction that BT Retail has that say Zen doesn't have is BT Retail will only ever sell Openreach, and Openreach's market share is shrinking by just over 500,000 circuits a year.
Yeah.
So their market share is shrinking, whereas Zen, we can do deals with lots of altnets.
Yeah.
And go at more of the market.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting. So lots of dynamics at play, and I do think, I've talked about this date of 2030 and where will we end up there, and it might even take longer than that to consolidate all these businesses just because of the difficulties involved. But I still stick by. I'd say Openreach, VMO2, Nexfibre, and then 2 or 3 national players, and then a bunch of like Barn, for example, the rural player. Tom Rigg that I interviewed a while, quite recently. I really hope they survive forever because
I think they will. They've got a sensible model, right? Like some of the other rural ones. So they either work off of the BDUK scheme or the voucher scheme. They go and go to 100 or 200 homes within a village, and their penetration rate is like 80% because they've gone there, said hello. There's 200 of you. Would you like full fibre? Yes, please. We've been waiting for 10 years. It's a good business model. It's never going to be a monster, but it's going to be a sustainable, profitable business from day dot. And I think there will be a lot of days.
I hope so. And I think particularly with Barn, because it's a community interest company.
Correct.
Back to what we were talking about, culture and values earlier. They're doing it for the right reasons. They're not doing it to make a return for private equity.
Correct. You got it. Hit the nail on the head.
And for and for a select bunch of founders and execs to get rich.
Exactly.
And so that appeals to me a lot.
Good. Do you need to? Have you got a hard stop at 12, Richard?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
So then, the question for me is, why haven't you aggregated more altnets to date? Like, has this only become a focus recently to be that aggregator? I think it is a huge USP. So you bought in City Fibre. You were quite early to adapt City Fibre. There's no doubt about that. And then there was a big gap before Truly came into it. And then what's delaying going with the ones that came to market like MS3 or FNW networks, those that came out the bat saying we're open access, come and connect to us. What was the delay there? Is it their technology or wasn't on your mindset?
I think there's a couple of things. It wasn't on our mindset for sure. We signed up with City Fibre on the national contract back in 2022. And then our focus was on let's maximize what we're doing with City Fibre. That took all our focus. I think that we are more entrepreneurial now, and I guess we're more thinking, what are the opportunities in the market? Let's go after them. And I think the other factor is that doing a deal with an altnet takes time. So the Truly deal was a good 9-10 months in the making, and of course you got to get to know this altnet. You've got to talk about possibilities. You've got to draw up heads of terms. You've got to have detailed contract negotiations. You've got to sign the contract. You've got to integrate with them. So we are going through that process with a small number of others that may or may not come to fruition. I mean, I'm expecting that we'll make 2 or 3 announcements in the next certainly in the next 6 months. So I think it's those things together that have meant that there's been a delay. But in terms of when we really saw this opportunity, it didn't really crystallize as an opportunity until about the middle of last year, about the middle of 2023. Thought, there's an opportunity for Zen here.
Of course.
I guess prior to that, we'd always thought that we'll do this deal with City Fibre, but we can justify that because of City Fibre's scale.
Their
But a lot of
footprint's huge.
these smaller ones, if you would have asked us a couple of years ago about Truly, for example, we'd be like, yeah, it's just too small. It's too much effort to make it worthwhile for us. But that's completely changed now because we can do deals that just make sense on both sides.
That's good.
And that, that wasn't clear a couple of years ago. It
I
started to
think
become clear last year.
if a
And then we started,
wholesaler can if a wholesaler can get to that space first, I think it's an incredible USP for a B2B reseller to gain access to multiple altnets on an FTTP front, not necessarily Ethernet, because Ethernet's come down so much now over the last 3 years, with new players coming out and just absolutely, removing any competition. But from an FTTP front, there's many large resellers and medium resellers, active resellers out there that would be desperate to access some of this FTTP footprint. So there's limited option for them on the City Fibre. They have got a couple of partners, and that's kind of where it stops. These other ones that they may be losing business to because an altnet's built and said, yeah, you can have a gig for 30 quid or whatever. They want that relationship. And if there is an aggregator, I think it'd be a huge USP to bring in new partners and mop up.
Yeah. So that's very much our plan. And then from the altnet's point of view, it's win-win as well. So from Truly's point of view, they get access to our reseller base. We've got 800 or 900 resellers that can then resell into the Truly network without needing to do anything because they're already placing orders with us. And then from Truly, and also from Truly's point of view, there's a base of existing Zen customers that are not on full fiber that could be on full fiber. So there's an immediate migration opportunity. And then the other thing is as they continue their build, rather than just going to new customers, you can buy, if you want to buy full fiber, you can buy it through the Truly retail brand.
Yeah.
They can now go to customers and say you can still buy through the Truly retail brand, but you've got a choice of Zen as well. So it's giving consumers that choice of two different brands, and then we might have add-on services that Truly don't have. There might be some difference in pricing, but it then feels more like a competitive market from the consumer perspective. We're obviously a much more known brand than Truly retail, so there might be customers that wouldn't have bought Truly retail because it's like, we've never heard of these guys, but actually Zen, we've heard of those. So we will buy a Zen service. So again, it's win-win.
Absolutely hit the nail on the head. Okay. So last little segment for me is your YouTube channel. So
yes,
you started your YouTube channel. Well, you started it. I had a quick look earlier, maybe about 4 years ago. What spurred you off kicking off your YouTube channel, which is now doing actually really well, and especially within the broadband space? But the content on there chops and changes a bit. Originally, you had an interview with BBC when COVID hit. Was that
indeed?
Was that the borning of your YouTube channel? Or
yeah. So the very first video that I did there's a video on my YouTube channel called "My Mission in Life." Which took me ages to film actually, because I'd not done any videos before then. But I thought, you know what, I really want to get a video out, setting out this foundation of what it's all about for me, what I see, the need for capitalism to evolve, my own feeling about people and the environment, and what I'm doing at Zen to try and make a difference. I thought I want to make a video that spells that out. And so I made this video and I thought I'll put it up on YouTube. And so that was the start. And I think, that was like 4 years ago, something like that. And then from there was the BBC interviews. I thought, well, let's put that up there. And I guess in the first couple of years, it was pretty ad hoc. So I'd be like, oh, we do this. We've made this little video because we've done some work with a local charity. Okay, well, let's just shove that up on my YouTube channel. Yeah. And then like 3 months would go by and I wouldn't have any content to put up. Yeah. And so the engagement was pretty low there, but it was good fun. And then one of the guys here, our AV guy, Sam Cooter-Eberwall, came up with this idea to interview people in the industry. Yeah. And the first one that I did was Greg Mesh. So he happened to be visiting our HQ in Rochdale just as a sort of regular supplier meeting. Yeah. And Sam had this idea, well, what about if you interview him? I was like, oh yeah, well, let's give that a go. And I thought, I don't even know if he'll agree to it, but he did agree to it. And then Sam set up the 3 cameras in the little green circle thing.
Yeah.
And I did the interview with Greg, got it out there, and it got really good engagement, like much more engagement than anything else that I'd done on my channel.
Yeah.
And then I got lots of feedback to say, oh, we really enjoyed that. You should do more of those. You know, from our exco, they were like, well, you should do more of those. And that's where it really started to take off. When I started lining up industry interviews with with everyone. I think I've done like 17 or 18 so far, to just give that insight into a very, very interesting time in the industry and get the perspectives of the individuals involved, you know, the people that are really shaping this industry at the moment. So yeah, that's the theme now. It's all about particularly the altnet world, but the broadband industry generally.
You're smashing it.
Yeah, and you know, we've got a few more lined up. I'm keen to get more women on the interview series. So I only got 2 so far. Tristia is on there, and Katie Milligan.
That was really good. That one
from OpenReach was on much more recently. But we've got a big focus in Zen on women in tech. We're doing lots of things to try and get more women into tech and leadership roles within Zen. And I think one thing I can do on my YouTube channel is just showcase more women in our industry, of which there are a lot. But it is still, you know, it's a still majority of men in the industry. So let's showcase some women to inspire other women to, like, you know, this is an industry we want to be in. But yeah, the plan going forward is continue the interviews and you know, trying to tap into those interesting little anecdotes from people that are involved in this very fast changing industry that we're in.
Absolutely. And the last question for me then, that was supposed to be the last, but one more. Is there anything, what are you most excited about within the next 2 years for Zen?
Oh, wow. Most exciting. Well, certainly the prospect of being an altnet aggregator, very, very exciting. So that feels like a real positive entrepreneurial thing for us. It's a big opportunity. It's quite a unique opportunity in terms of who can do this and do it well. So I'd say that's the biggie, is make the most of this state of flux in the industry. Do some really blinding deals that are mutually beneficial for us and altnets. Become an altnet aggregator. That's a really, really big opportunity. Apart from that, continue on the Zen journey. You know, 29 years now, it'll be 30 years in 2025. Stick to our principles, stick to our values, keep doing what we're doing, do the best for people, do the best for the environment. You know, that is it's Zen's purpose. It's my own personal purpose.
Yeah.
So
will you throw a big party for your 30-year?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Happy days. Richard, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this for me. And this is the first virtual one that we've done as well. And obviously Sam has set up the equipment incredibly well, and touch wood, this has all gone really smoothly. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Yeah. Cheers, Johnny.
Thank you very much.